Okay, lovely. I think we'll make a start. So I'm just having a look through the questions now that have been submitted. Thank you to those that have submitted the questions. Do feel free to submit them. We've got a little bit of time to be able to work through them. So the first one, are my choices final? Or can I change my mind even if it's been submitted? So your choices, you do have the ability to be able to add anything that you need to after the 30th of June through UCAS. So that's not an option. Sorry, that is an option even, it's not a problem. So if you do need to add anything extra, then you can do that. If you decide that you want to make a different course choice or a different institution choice, then that can be done until that date. The second question, does every course have an interview as a requirement? Absolutely not, no. So it entirely depends on the course that you're applying for. So as a rule of thumb, anything that is classed as a professional course is a course that you would need to have an interview for. So when I mean professional courses, that's things like nursing and midwifery, anything within the allied health professions, such as physio or paramedicine or anything like that. And some universities ask to interview you if you're studying anything for art and design and also architecture. So anything other than that, you would need to check locally with the institution that you're applying to. But as a rule of thumb, anything professional such as health or teaching, anything that leads into a professional career, you will need to have an interview for. Okay. As a parent, are there any key dates I need to be aware of and sessions I should attend to support my child from start to finish with the application process? The main, most important date that you need to be aware of is the 15th of January. So as we mentioned in the session, my colleague Martin touched on, the 15th of January is the equal consideration deadline for UCAS. So that is the most important date to remember, that your child submits their application before that date to have the best chance of getting their application considered. Anything applied after that date, there is no guarantee that universities or institutions will look at the application. So it is important to get equal consideration is to apply before that date. Another thing to consider with that is colleges and sixth forms and other FE providers sometimes have an internal date. So sometimes that can be, I know quite commonly is in December, so it might be worth just checking whether your child's college or institution has an internal deadline. The reason that they do that is just to make sure that everything is checked over, references can be submitted without any delay to the UCAS 15th of January deadline. So that's another one just to be aware of. Does UCAS charge for every university you apply to? Absolutely not. So the UCAS fee is different if you're only applying to one institution. I think it's around £21. If you are applying to the maximum of 5, I think it is around £26. But do check on the UCAS website for up-to-date prices and costs for that service. But absolutely not. You don't get charged for every individual application that you put in. Is the application process different for specialist institutions? That's a really, really good question. So the majority of HE providers take their applications through UCAS, especially for undergraduate courses. There are some exceptions to this in terms of part-time courses. Sometimes universities will accept direct application. It is very important that you check this with the institution that you are wanting to apply to. But in answer to your question, the majority of applications will be made through UCAS. Some universities don't consider direct application at all. Some do, but only for very, very specific courses or different types of courses. So it is worth checking individually before you make any application directly, just so you don't miss out in any way. Okay, how do I defer for a year, and do many people do this? So in terms of whether many people do this, that's a little bit difficult. One thing that's interesting is that because of the pandemic, we did find at Sheffield Hallam that deferrals wasn't actually as high as we may have thought they were going to be. A lot of people did carry on with their plans for entering higher education this year. In terms of how to defer, so if you think or feel that at some point down the line towards next September or the September after, whenever you're applying to start, that you might not be able to go this year or next year or whenever, it is important if you are considering it, and there is a possibility to put your application in, if down the line you do decide you made an offer, you're invited to start in the September, that you do want to move over to the next year, then all you need to do is contact the admissions department at the institution that you're holding an offer for. Check with each institution, but for instance at Sheffield Hallam, we just ask you to send it in writing, including sort of why you want to defer, and then that will be seen as on a case by case basis. Okay, the next one, when do I apply for student finance and accommodation? So 2 separate answers for this one. So student finance, you apply for that normally in February. So that might seem a little bit odd because you'll be thinking, okay, well, maybe I won't have an answer by February. That's fine. Apply for student finance as soon as the student finance applications open. This is important to make sure that there are no delays to any payments that you may get in the September when you start university. There's nothing worse than a student who is relying on that money coming in on the maintenance loan and there is a delay for an administrative reason. So if you can, then, and you've already put your application in through UCAS, that's all done and dusted. Even if you're not sure where you're going, even if you're not sure what course you're doing, apply for student finance as soon as it opens. If you do need to make any changes whatsoever, that's quite easy to do. So as long as student finance are aware when you enrol at your institution, by that point, by then in the summer, just keep student finance updated with any changes, but absolutely apply for that as soon as the applications go live. In terms of student accommodation, that's slightly different. So with student accommodation, when you accept an offer from a university and you are interested in accommodation, then the accommodation teams at the university will get in touch with you. And at that point, then you will work through that application with them. So that's a little bit later down the line. What you can do in the meantime, if you are interested in accommodation, is go onto university websites where there's a whole range of information about student halls, about how to access private accommodation. And I do know that a lot of universities also support with private accommodation as well. So they may have a list of sort of associated landlords or housing companies who can support student accommodation as well. So do have that conversation with universities. One key thing to bear in mind is the importance of open days, even if they are virtual, because there tends to always be some representative from accommodation teams and student services who can provide a lot more information and answer any more in-depth questions that you have. So do keep an eye on university websites for key dates of when these sort of events will happen. But student finance first, accommodation a little bit later on down the line. How many universities can I apply to? Brilliant. So the UCAS system allows for up to 5. You can apply for less than 5. You don't have to feel that you have to put full 5 down. So you can apply for up to 5 institutions. Like I say earlier on, if you only want to apply for 1, then I believe the fee is lower. If you apply for more than 1, up to the 5, then it's higher. If you get to a point down the line where you need to, I know Martin touched on in the video about things like UCAS Extra, you can, there is no charge for UCAS Extra, and you can add on some more institutions or courses if the 5 you have put down already, A, you're not accepting any offers from any of those institutions, or B, you didn't receive any offers, or C, you've cancelled the offers. So it could be a mix of all 3 of those situations. So you get to the summer and you haven't got an offer from anywhere, any of the 5. You can add extras on at that point. That can also be different courses within those same institutions as well. So there is a degree of flexibility down the line should you need it. Okay, let me move on to the next question. Has COVID changed the application process in any way? This again may vary between different institutions, but as a rule of thumb, the application process is going ahead as it should be. The only key difference that you probably need to be aware of, and chances are you may already be aware of it, is A-level results day this year, and BTEC results day has been pushed back by 2 weeks, so that's going to be later on in August. And the key difference that will make is if you are interested in applying through clearing, because clearing day will then be pushed back in line with that as well. So that's something just to be aware of. But other than that, the only other change that I can think of in terms of COVID and the application process is the interviewing courses. So if you are needing an interview, I know at Sheffield Hallam and more than likely other institutions as well, that interviews are being done online, opposed to being able to go onto campus and have the interview directly in the university itself. So that's something else to be aware of. It might be worth, if you are applying for a professional course or anything within art and design, that you familiarise yourself with the way that different universities are doing their interviews, whether you need to start thinking about whether you can access certain software. The universities will be able to tell you exactly what you need to do if you are invited for interview, and the systems and any processes that you need to follow. But that is another key change going into next year. Okay, let me just have a look at the next question. What sections are there for parents or carers to fill out? In terms of the UCAS application, there isn't any sections for parents or carers to fill out. There is a section for the student, and then there is a section for references. Parents or carers do need to fill out part of the student finance application. So that's something to bear in mind, that parents or carers, if living with the student going to university, will need to provide some information to student finance. So that's something to have a look at. Student finance's website is brilliant to let you know what sort of thing that would be. Will it cost any more to go into extra clearing or adjustment? I think I've slightly answered that already in terms of earlier on in one of the other questions. There is no extra fee. So if you've already paid your fee, so for instance, the £26 to apply for up to 5 institutions, then no, absolutely not. Could you explain again what will happen once an application is submitted, particularly the different types of offers you can get? Okay, absolutely. So once an application is submitted, there are a couple of different types of offers that you can get. So hopefully you'll log into your UCAS in towards the end of spring into the summer, and you'll start to see your offers coming in. So the first type of offer, which is the most common type of offer given before any results come in, is the conditional offer. And what that means is that you have been given a conditional offer of a place at an institution. Now, normally that is conditional on grades coming in later on in the year. So for instance, your A-level or BTEC grades. If you already have your grades, so for instance, you've done your A-levels or BTECs last year, then and you apply to the university and you can already prove those grades, then you'll be given something called an unconditional offer, which means that you have been given an unconditional place on the course, and if you accept, then you will be hopefully coming to the university in the September. In terms of conditional offers turning into unconditional offers, that normally happens if you can satisfy the tariff, so in terms of the requirements for the course. So if you have a conditional offer pending your grades and the grades that you get meet the requirements, then your offer will automatically change into an unconditional offer. So that's those two different types of offers. The other thing that you may see on UCAS when you apply, hopefully not, but there is the one where it's a rejection as well. If that happens, then you can sort of get in touch and try to find out if there's any feedback that you need to make sure that the next time you apply, you have a success. So that's something else you can do if it does end up being a rejection. Okay, if I defer, am I charged for any student accommodation arrangements that I have made? And if I defer, can the university decline the request, leaving me to lose my place? So the first part of that question I'll answer first in terms of student accommodation arrangements. Now, it is slightly different, I imagine, for different institutions and different types of accommodation. So if you do find yourself in that situation where you've already put yourself forward for accommodation, then please do read any information that you need to in terms of any contracts or any documentation that any accommodation providers send you, just to make sure that if there is any need to defer or something happens, that you understand where you stand, and ask the question before if you feel that deferral may be an option. Sometimes you don't know that it's going to be something that you need to do down till the day that you need to do it. But if you do think that it may be something you need to do, check that with the accommodation provider prior to starting any contract or any agreement with them. Okay. And the other part of that question was, can the university decline the request, leaving me to lose my place? Again, this could vary between institutions, but I think there would need to be a very good reason for a university to do that. If something like that was to happen, then you can just contact the university and just find out whether there's anything that they can do. But there would need to be a very, very good reason for a university to be able to do that. Okay, so just keep the lines of communication open with the university if you're not happy with any decision. If I am interested in applying for student bursaries or scholarships, when do I do this? So you do that when you apply for your student finance. So there are two types of student bursaries and scholarships. There are the sort of government run ones, which are available to everyone, dependent on where you go, based on a certain set of criteria, of course. So you do that. They all become available when you put in your application for student finance through the student finance application. In terms of institution-specific scholarships and bursaries, they are applied to pretty much at the same time in the same way, and the scholarships and bursaries teams that sit within each university will be able to support you with any application that you may have, or any scholarships or bursaries you may think that you are eligible for. That's a really good tip, in fact, is to do your research around any bursaries or scholarships, because there are so many of them, and sometimes people don't realise just how many they may be entitled to. So do some research in that area to get yourself ready, because there are quite a good number of different bursaries and scholarships, both centrally and within different institutions. Okay, the next question. Are there any opportunities for me to broaden and deepen my understanding of the subject I want to apply for if I have never studied it before? The key thing here is research, so doing your research. Now, one thing that has been a bit of a common worry and concern amongst students lately is getting that insight into the profession if they're wanting to go into a professional course, or getting the insight into the course itself if it's not a professional course, because obviously because of the restrictions, people aren't able to go out and get that level of experience or insight. So one of the key things, like I say, is to do your research. Go online. There's an absolute raft of information online for you to look into, things like videos, podcasts, so academic journals are always a good one to look at, pieces of research that are coming out, especially if you're wanting to study healthcare. There's so much research going on at the moment in terms of healthcare, having a look into that, making sure that you understand. I think one of the key things is understanding what you're going into, understanding that that's the course that you want to do. So research is absolutely essential. Also, another key thing is keeping an eye on university websites, because we do ever such a lot of outreach activity, insight sessions, subject tasters, all virtually at the moment. So do keep an eye on different universities' websites, because it might be a good opportunity to get that insight into the courses that you're interested in, even though you can't go on site at the moment. So that's something to consider. Okay, once I've submitted my application to UCAS, can I alter or change any of the details if they are incorrect or need to be changed? Yes, you can, absolutely. If you need to submit anything, not on the personal statement, once that's submitted, that's submitted. But if there's any personal details that you need to change, you can contact UCAS just to get that sorted. Do more students stay on campus at the weekends? Not necessarily, it depends. For Sheffield, for instance, we have ever such a lot of students. We have a really good 50-50 split of students that live in accommodation, and we have a good amount that could either live locally or commute. So yeah, quite a good number. Sheffield is a student city. There's two universities within Sheffield, University of Sheffield and the Sheffield Hallam. So we do have quite a lot of, so in the normal pre-COVID and hopefully post-COVID climate, quite a large social life, student population. So yeah, many students do stay on campus and stay within accommodation over the weekends, and then maybe go home for the holidays. But we do also get a lot of students who stick around for the holidays as well, stay within friendship circles, and spend their time on campus within accommodation. So we do have a really good mix at different towards different types of students. So we've got people who live away, people who commute in, and people who live in accommodation. If I have a learning disability, do I need to disclose this when applying to university? That's a really good question and really important as well. So it is best, if you have any form of any learning disability or any disability at all, to disclose it. And the main reason for that is to make sure that when you start university, when you enroll, that you are given all the support that you need. And the only way you can get that is if you tell us any support that you need by disclosing any disability or any issues that you have. What universities tend to have is a disability support team, and they will work with you through the full 3 years just to identify any issues or any challenges that you may have while studying at university, and work with you to come up with any solutions or give you that extra bit of support that you need. So for you, it's in your own best interests mainly to disclose any support that you may need when starting with the university. And the last question for now, which is as a care leaver, is there any support I can get when applying to university? Absolutely. So for instance, at Sheffield Hallam, we have a scheme called Shoe Progress, and that is specifically aimed at particular groups of people, one of them being care leavers, and it gives that group of people a package of support around applying to university. Also, once started at university, so once you've started your course, there is extra support throughout your time, so on-course support. But absolutely, most universities will do this. It is worth checking individually to find out what support is on offer for care leavers, but absolutely there is a package of support there, 100% at Sheffield Hallam for sure. So if you do need anything extra or any extra support around application, or you can see something coming up whilst being on course that you feel like you may need extra support for. The other part of support that is there for care leavers is there's a care leavers bursary, which is eligible to students who come from this background. So that might be as well worth looking into and doing some research around before you apply. So that's it for questions that I've got in at the moment. Is if anyone's got anything else that they want to pop down, then I'll hang around for 5 minutes or so. Can't see any questions coming through. Okay, lovely. So have a lovely weekend, everyone, and when it finally arrives, and a lovely Christmas, and good luck with everything. Just make sure that you know and remember that universities are here to support you. If you need any support whatsoever, then just get in touch. There's loads of support available. Thanks a lot, everyone.